us. Um, a quick intro. My name is Hadon, and I am an HR consultant at Scale HR. And we also have the wonderful Hannah Dean, who's with us today as well. All right, just hang on a moment. Let me close my Slack so these messages don't disturb us. Excellent. So thank you everybody for attending our session today. And I'll give a quick bio for Hannah. So Hannah is an employment branding manager at Paper, a tech startup based out of Montreal. And her journey has been quite interesting actually, because she started off as a kindergarten teacher and then went through this amazing transformative transition through people ops and technical recruiting. And so she has some really fun and great insights on people and the recruiting process itself. And here's a really fun fact. Hannah is an active person who enjoys running, and also she's a bodybuilder. So with that, thank you, Hannah, for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I just absolutely love the idea of being able to connect with different HR professionals. I think it's so important, especially in our line of work, to be able to work closely together, learn from each other, and work with this ever-changing climate that we're dealing with right now. I think this is the way we get through it, is through connection.
Awesome. I agree with you 100%. Okay, let me just load up our slides.
Yeah. So I'm Hannah. I'm excited to be here today to discuss with you employee-led employment branding. It's something that's really, really close to my heart. I've seen firsthand as a recruiter the difference that a good and strong employment branding strategy can have when you're trying to close those deals. One of the things I've learned is that candidates are diverse. There's nobody out there that's more diverse than your candidate set. And being able to give them a really clear vision of what they can expect when you join your organization is a great step at actually attracting and retaining them. Great, next slide. So yeah, quick little intro about me. I'm a passionate learner. I'm, a bookworm. You can always see me reading new articles, reading new journals, and just really trying to engage with everything that I possibly can around me. I'm a mom of three. I have three funny little monkeys, as I call them, and they keep me on my toes. Amateur chef. I like to consider myself. I am always in the kitchen trying to whip up something. I'm having a party in a few days, and we're really excited to be having a gnocchi making session with some people, some family in Italy is zooming in to teach us how to make gnocchi fresh. So we're really excited about that. And I'm an employment branding enthusiast. And that's, as I said, just such a huge passion of mine. Spent the last few years as a recruiter, technical recruitment, dealing with a lot of engineers, a lot of scientists, PhDs, and really learned that I needed to be able to stand out when, a candidate's getting 15 different emails from recruiters all over the world at this stage. I needed to be able to do something that would really make them want to talk to me. And furthermore, for them to want to join my company. And so, yeah, that's who I am. All right, next slide. So employment branding, it's this concept that we hear about all of the time, but it's so much more than just this, HR initiative. Employment branding is really that bridge between a signed offer from your unicorn candidate and that really difficult to fill role. What we're focusing on is giving candidates a really good intro as to what they can expect when they join your organization. Candidates want to know what it's like to work for your company, what it's going to be like for their families, for their hobbies, how all of these things are going to be impacted when they join your team. So let's start. Who's familiar with employment branding? Can we put up that quick, what were we calling it? Survey? There we go. Awesome. So a little bit more yeses. But one of the ways I like to kind of explain what I do, there's always that joke that millennials can't explain their jobs to their parents or their, aunts and uncles. So one of the things I always like to say is, do you want to work at Google? Everyone wants to work at Google. They're that company and nobody really knows why, but their employees are just really passionate about being Googlers. And Like, do you want to work at a company that, you know, is constantly having low retention? No, that's not what you want. And people don't really know why. They're not able a lot of times to give you some tangible answers, but they understand that that employment branding is attracting them to those companies. All right. So I don't need to tell you that we're currently experiencing a really strong candidates market. Both attracting and retaining talent has become increasingly more challenging. Employees, both current and future, are demanding flexible, challenging, and supportive environments to grow their careers. The latest MacBook and you know, good benefits no longer cut it when attracting top talent. I see all of these amazing initiatives that HR teams all around the world are creating. They're using new benefits and perks. They're investing in employees' growth and development. They're fostering these healthy environments and promoting a great work-life balance. Really, they're taking the employees and you know, giving them what they're asking for. Well, we can keep investing in new perks, snack bars, swag, fitness classes. They're only as great as your employees say they are. Both candidates and employees need to be aware of these perks. And just like a marketing team selling a product, it's our job to really be able to share with them how amazing it is to work at your company. Employment Brandy's mission is to share with both candidates and, yes, even your current employees, just how great it is to be an employee at your company. A strong employment branding strategy will focus on highlighting the lifestyle future employees can expect by joining your company. By ensuring alignment with current employees, you'll be able to produce an organic marketing initiative that supports both recruitment and retention. During my time as a recruiter, I learned very quickly that recruiters walk a really thin line between HR and sales. While the initial process of recruiting focuses on finding the right talent whose skills and experience match the role requirements, once those candidates have been narrowed down, it's up to the recruiter to really sell the role to the candidate. I've completed hundreds of interviews, meeting everyone from fresh grads to seasoned executives. And while candidates were really excited to be able to discuss the company, the mission, and their experience, they were usually most eager to actually jump into what they could expect by joining the team and what their lifestyle will look like by signing that offer letter. This has become really, really important lately. Candidates are going through entire interview processes remotely. When I think about myself, the role I'm in currently, I didn't meet anyone until about 6 months into my job. Next slide. They want to know if there's going to be opportunities for them to be able to connect with their coworkers. They want to feel comfortable and supported when they have to leave to pick up their child early for soccer practice. And at the same time, they want to know that the company that they're joining is going to invest in their growth and career development. I want you to take a second and think back to when you were interviewing with your current organization, or maybe you're going through an interview process right now. I vividly remember, and my husband, you know, I'm sure would laugh if he ever heard this, but I didn't actually look at the majority of the perks and benefits of my current organization until after I had signed my offer letter. What I had done is lots of research on the people. I was joining a company completely remotely, and to say the least, I was nervous. I had never been through a process like this. And I wanted to learn everything I possibly could about anybody who I would be working with. Before every interview, I would take time and, you know, search everyone on LinkedIn, see what I could find, dig in. And I'll never forget the one day I was going into my final interview, went through my ritual, you know, LinkedIn search, and a testimonial or one of those LinkedIn shout outs popped up from somebody who is now my current coworker, but she was discussing her manager and talking about how supportive she had been during this huge transition that they had just went through, and that she was, you know, patient and took time. And, you know, that was really what it was that pushed me to say, yeah, I could see myself there. I could see myself joining a company where I have coworkers like this, where patience and you know, authenticity are just pillars of how we work together. That was something I was looking for. And to see it organically by an employee really helped me. All right. right. As a recruiter, I typically hear stories like this from candidates. As you know, I'll dig into in a little bit that opportunity for employees to be able to connect, even if it's not, in the traditional sense, but to be able to connect with your employees' experiences is a really big game changer. I'll hear candidates all the time saying, "Oh yeah, I actually just saw that post of the finance team and they all got together in San Francisco and oh, that was so cool. Like it looked like they have so much fun." I never prompted that candidate to go look at those things, but it was something that they were organically doing on their own, which is great. And to ensure that you have that information there is just as important as the information itself. So, what you want to do as we're discovering, what our employment brand strategy is going to look like is first identifying your culture. And this can be a little bit more difficult than, in years prior, especially being fully remote, even being a little bit remote. What I'm seeing recently is more so than ever, different departments are embodying their own little different cultures. And that could be, a good thing or a bad thing. And it's really kind of up to us as HR professionals to be able to interact with our teams, understand what their wins are, what their challenges are, what their day-to-day looks like, what the lifestyle is that's associated with being a member of that team. And that's what we're going to use as our kind of base for our employment brand and strategy. So to really be able to figure out what that's going to look like, I've thought of a few different questions. If we want to start, we can go through those different questions, just kind of some things to think about. So let's start. Yeah. So what statement best reflects your employees? So empty inbox by 5, there's no Slacks, there's no Teams left, everything is being finished, everything is handed in by 5 every day? Or are they taking their time, getting through their email? It's okay to have that 3 to 5 business days for a response. What does your team look like? So we'll kind of start to see how this is going to play out, but essentially there's not a wrong answer, right? A company that's in a startup phase, that's fast growing, they're scaling, they're going to really want their employees to be able to get through their email every single day. It's going to be, a really big step to ensuring that their customers are having their answers met right away, and that everything is moving the way it needs to be. Whereas a company that's a little bit more established, they've experienced that tenor, they might have more of a slower track. They might have that relationship with their customers where 3 to 5 days is acceptable, or even internally where 3 to 5 days is acceptable. So essentially there is no wrong answer, but it's really important that we are able to identify what that looks like for our company. So, next question. All right. So this is another good one. Are employees leaving at 5 p.m. on the dot? When you look up at 5:05, is the office clear? Are you, sitting at your desk at home and looking on Teams and realizing everybody is off? Or are they hanging around? Are they having drinks after work? Are they still, sending memes at 6:15? What is the different culture like for you? So we're almost at 50-50. And that's, again, really speaks for the type of culture that you have. I work at a company where we have this really kind of flexible thing. But our CEO and all of our leadership team has asked and consistently encourages everybody to not message anybody after 5. So 5 p.m., it's very normal that there's nobody online and you won't be getting an email back. That being said, I've worked for companies in the past where it was really normal to spend, to hang out after work, grab a coffee, go for a run with your colleagues, grab a beer. And that was fun too. They both were great, just different. And for me personally, different stages of my life. Right. Next question. Right. So, do you have a team that's hyped up? Are they game changers who are, looking to have everything done by 9 a.m.? They're just excited to, change the world, super, super excited. Or are they more laissez-faire? Are they, relaxed? They're taking their time. They really like sticking to the policies and everybody stays within their job description. Again, there's not a wrong answer, but identifying these things can really, really help you understand what that culture is like and what your employees can expect when you're going through different candidacy. Yeah. So 50-50, exactly. Yeah. So I currently work with a team of absolute game changers. I will never forget when I met our VP of sales and I asked him a question that I'll get to later. But I said, "What is it like to be a paper employee?" And he said, "Do you remember, like, think back, grade 5, grade 6, you're in the gym, you're playing dodgeball, and there's that one team that has to win, and everyone, including the teachers, including, the older kids, the younger kids, keeps kind of looking at them like, guys, it's grade 6 dodgeball. Like, this isn't the Olympics. No one's taking a trophy home, but this team is still like playing with blood, sweat, and tears and just all in it. It's like, that's what it's like to be at paper." I laughed, knowing secretly that I'm extremely competitive. And I was like, oh, this is my team. But that's what it is. That being said, I've worked at other companies, especially when I was working in education, where it was very normal to just do your job. That's all that was expected from you. That's all that your colleagues were doing. And there was, still a great culture with that as well. All right. I think this is our final question going after this. All right. Ooh, this is a good one. And this is one that I've seen evolve a lot. So, are your employees discussing their personal lives in office hours, or is it strictly work related conversations? So, I'll take it a step further and explain, what this has looked like in my professional career. For example, I woke up this morning, I logged on to some social media, which I know you shouldn't do right in the morning, but I did it anyways. And I had some, DMs from one of my coworkers. That's our relationship. We talk kind of all the time. We're really like friends. She knows about my children. I know about her fiance. And I can say that for a large majority of my team. That being said, I've also worked for companies where we don't talk. We know who we are in the office. That's what we talk about. Our conversations lie around career development, around projects, and that's okay too. So, what does that look like for your team? So a lot of people talking about their personal lives, which again, neither is wrong, neither is right. It's whatever works for your team. I think that's the answer to the questions. Yes. All right. Oh, no, there was one more. Okay, so oh, this is a good one too. So when you're talking about career development, is it, it happens whenever where it's like, hey, you just did really, really great on that project. Yeah, we're gonna make you a manager. Or is it, hey, you have to be here for so long. You need to have accomplished X, Y, and Z. You need to kind of go through all of these different things. I think sometimes of myself and my husband, he's in HR as well, but he works for a very unionized environment, and he can tell you what role he'll be in 5 years, and he absolutely loves that. I say all of the time that I don't know what I'm going to do in 2 months, and what my projects are going to look like, and that excites me, and that works for me. We're two very different people, but that's, those are those bases of those cultures. Awesome. All right. And so I'm like 90% sure that was the last question. All right. Okay. So a lot of these answers are really going to help you determine what it's like to be an employee at your team. Candidates are so diverse and they're always looking for different things. I recently had a friend reach out to me and she said she was just so frustrated with the market. She said, everybody just wants to work remote. Like, it must be so easy for you to recruit because you're fully remote. And I laughed and explained that we lose candidates every single week because they don't want a fully remote role. Candidates are diverse, and what works for one region might not work for another. And so really understanding your internal culture and the expectations from your employees and what's going to work for them is really kind of the basis behind figuring out what your future employees are going to look like. So there's a lot of different ways of really exploring what it's like to be an employee at your team. You could do simple things like good old fashioned Google surveys. And of course, there's, millions of different pulse surveys that are offered to HR professionals all over the world. But what I personally found was really connecting with our team at Paper. Next slide. So when I joined Paper, I made the point, and keeping in mind I joined as a recruiter, I made the point to really talk to our employees. We have a great referral program, which we do get tons of candidates from. And so I would, as I was meeting everybody throughout the company, I would ask them for their sales pitch. And I'll never forget this one time where I asked one of our top engineers who had been with us for about 5 years, is still with us today. And I said, so, hey, can you give me your sales pitch? Like, how do you've brought in 5 people yourself. How do you do it? And I've never seen somebody look more dumbfounded. He's like, Hannah, I'm not in sales. I'm an engineer. And I said, well, I know, but how do you convince your friends and your prior colleagues that they should join Paper? He really at first didn't really know what he was saying. And so we dug a little deeper, and he realized what he was explaining to these referrals that he had brought in was what it was like to be a member of our squads. Our engineering team works on squads. So what that means for us is we have on each squad, we have a front end, a back end, we have a UX designer, a data scientist, and then a squad lead. And they all work together on singular projects. What's pretty cool about this is that I think it's about every month to 2 months, when the project finishes, they move on and they get all new squad members. It really gives them the opportunity to work with everybody in the team and to understand how other people are thinking and how other people are doing things. He went on to explain that our engineering team, they do things like live coding. So they will sit on Zoom together all day. And this to this day still makes me go, ooh. I can't imagine being on Zoom with anybody all day, but they do it every single day. And the reasoning behind, I loved. A lot of engineers ninja code. So that means they'll work on the same codes simultaneously without actually talking to each other, which, might work for them. But for younger developers, people who are just coming into development and in a company that's changing quite rapidly, it's really, really beneficial for them to be able to all work together at once. And so they've taken the opportunity to sit on Zoom all day. And he said, sometimes we don't say anything. Sometimes we have a lot to say. And that's great. And that's the way he represents what it is to be a member of his team. The last thing that he shares is our engineering team goes out for wing nights every 2 weeks. They're apparently really big chicken wings fans. I'm a vegetarian, so this doesn't work for me. But they go out and they find different places. And that's a great representation of those mini cultures. So as a recruiter, my team doesn't do that. We don't have the ability to do that. But as our engineering team is really, really into that, which has been, great for new developers as they're joining this new organization. So, all right. So let me kind of go through next slide. What we did at Paper to really start to create that employment brand. So when I joined Paper, it's kind of this joke that I created my own job, and which I did. But my second day at Paper, I was asked if I wanted to join a meeting with a company that was trying to sell us on employment branding. And our VP of people laughed and he said, I don't really get employment branding. Like, we have good job descriptions. What more do we need? And I immediately was so excited. I'm like, this is an amazing opportunity. We have such a great company. Let's do this. And so we started really, really small and focused really first on going behind the scenes. The first thing I did was started to create that community within our team. We are completely remote. And so it's really easy to feel like you're not a part of something. What we did was we labeled our team Paper Rates. It's a silly name, but our employees are really, really passionate about our mission. They're so excited about what we're doing. And so it really resonated with them. They joined, they felt like Paper Rates, they felt like they were a part of something. So once they were Paper Rates, to incorporate with that with different things, we started doing contests, just these simple little fun things. We do paper days, which is a great opportunity for our employees to get some mental health rest, to spend some more time with their family, to take some much needed breaks, which is amazing, and we love them. But we were doing these paper days. They're also unscheduled. Nobody knows about a paper day until a few days before. And we weren't really telling anybody about it, which to me was, this big gap that we could be filling. And so when we had our first paper day that I was an employee, I suggested we should do a paper contest. And so I encouraged all of our employees to go out, wear their paper swag on paper day, and take a picture and show us how you spent your paper day. The first one, we, got some traction, and, the employee was really excited for the prize they won. But by the second and third, they started getting a little crazy. Going back to that dodgeball team that, is highly competitive, people got really competitive with paper day, and it created some incredible content. We had an employee who, again, you get about 2-3 days notice. Within that 2-3 days, he planned an entire trip to Disney for him and his kids. Flew them all to Disney for the day, wearing paper swag with Mickey Mouse. We had an employee who hadn't got a manicure or pedicure in like 2 years, got paper written on her nails and toes. And while this is absolute great content, what we also encouraged our employees to do was share their stories online, share it with everybody else. And that's where we really started to see that community building of what we call brand fans at Paper. And so once that happened, we really started focusing on working behind the scenes. We looked at our recruitment efforts. We ensured everything was aligned. All of our hiring managers, all of our recruiters were encouraged to start their interviews, talking about why they love working at Paper, sharing what it's like to be a member of their team, and really making sure that we're putting forth that Paper community. Once that happened, we did something really simple, and it paid off really well. We created I'm hired badges. Lots of companies do this, but within EdTech, that Paper I'm hired badge has kind of become a little bit coveted. We've seen it's the end of Q1 today, and so we've seen some incredible data come out of just these simple I'm hired badges. Within Q1, since I started, we've actually went through 2 rounds of funding. We've seen, since we started doing employment branding, 40,000 plus new followers on our LinkedIn. And we've been able to track that about 85% of our hired candidates within the 3 months prior to being hired actually were participating and interacting with Paper Life on LinkedIn and other social media. So next slide. I think I'm running a little bit late. That's it. That's how we're doing it. We're connecting with candidates. We're having our employees lead the initiatives. We're taking it to the public, sharing what it's like to be a Paper Rate. Last slide. All right. So the main takeaways is keep it authentic. Remember, employees don't want to be lied to, or candidates don't want to be lied to. They want to know what it's like to be a member of your team and what they can expect. There's no right answers. There's no wrong answers. It's going to be individual for absolutely everybody. Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing so many great things about life at Paper. I mean, I'm going to convince now to join too. And I love how, you're just sharing how, like, with the polls of different cultures, none of it is bad per se, but as long as you're transparent about what your culture is, that's going to help you reel in and attract the people that really fit your firm. So with that, we'll open up the floor to any questions. So feel free to pop the questions in the chat or in the Q&A function. But as people are thinking of their questions, I actually had a few that come to mind as well.
Awesome.
I was actually really curious though, like what tools do you use to keep track of the pulse of employee engagement? You kind of spoke about that earlier when the first few paper days, the traction wasn't really there and then it built up gradually over time. How did you keep track of that pulse?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is where, we're a data-driven company. I'm an analytical person, so this was a pretty easy one for me. On your traditional LinkedIn account for a company, you are going to have those analytics, which are great. But we went a step further as well. We brought in APIs to our Greenhouse account, which is where we use for our ATS. We brought them into different things that we were seeing that there was a lot of traction on. We also started using a hashtag. So we use hashtag #LifeAtPaper. And we encouraged our employees to use it, and that was also something that we were able to track, see how it was being used, and bring all that data to really evolve what we were doing and see what was working.
Awesome. There's actually a question from the audience as well, and I put it on stage. So what is the I'm hired badge?
Yes, sorry, I might not have dug into that. So it's actually this really kind of little silly fun initiative that we do. So the Friday before employees start, our recruiters who actually hired that employee, what they do is they reach out to that candidate. They email or they call. They really want to focus on those pre-first day jitters. So they say, hey, we're so excited for you to join. Your hiring manager is excited, the team is excited. We actually do an Uber Eats lunch for all of our first day employees with their teams. So we say, oh, by the way, like, don't make lunch, we're going to have Uber Eats and you're going to get to like sit down and meet with all your teams. So kind of getting them amped up, getting them excited, ensuring they have all of their technology and stuff. And then they also say, oh, and by the way, here's this I'm hired badge. Please feel free to post it on LinkedIn, post it on social media, telling your network that you've started with paper. We've actually now included it in our welcome package. So now we have both a hard copy and then the digital copy. And it's always this funny thing that especially, I don't hire any teachers, but we do hire a lot of teachers at Paper, and they'll always say how excited they were to get their finally get their Paper I'm hired badge. And it's kind of become this coveted thing within the ed tech community as Paper is growing quite rapidly.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, thanks for sharing. And I think that that's such a great initiative as well. And to have people like just be proud of like where they are and then have that relationship with their managers, etc., before they even start.
Absolutely. We had this one. So, right when we came back from the holidays after the January, we had held off our start dates for our cohorts. And we ended up having a day where I think 40 people started. It was something absolutely crazy. And one of our investors actually took a video of him scrolling through LinkedIn, and all he could see was Paper I'm hired badges, which was, absolutely great traction for us and definitely helped.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. Like your whole entire timeline. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And like no bots, actual real people.
Actual real people, which is, that key to being authentic. And they have their stories, which are always so great too.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So as people are thinking of questions, I have one myself too, which is this is great and all, but how did you get buy-in from the start to actually boost and build employer branding strategy? Because as you said, like you came in and then you were like the first.
Yeah, and that's such a great question. And I don't want to say, hey, I just presented employment branding and it took off. It really, that data played a huge role as we were growing, seeing people interact, ensuring, our recruiters were asking questions to see what was working. We got so much candidate feedback, but we also really ensured that it was all aligned with our hiring goals. So we were in a growth phase right now. The hiring is quite incredible. Within the last few years, I think we grew 400%. Like it's just absolute craziness, which is super exciting. But it's difficult, right? And when you have this candidates market where we were having candidates decline offers, which 2 years ago, you would have never imagined in a million years a candidate declining an offer. And it's happening more and more. So we needed to do something to kind of make that push that, hey, you want to work here. You don't only want to work here because you believe in our mission and it's absolutely incredible, but you're going to enjoy your time. You're going to get that work life balance that's important to you. You're going to have that team that supports you. And the way we were able to do that is through employment branding and sharing our story.
Oh, that's no, that's fantastic. And again, like you said earlier, it goes back to like the data as
That
well
data. Yeah.
and presenting that to the people who have that influence. And one last question before we end off our session, which is, were there any surprises or challenges along the way as you were building up this employer branding strategy?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot. I guess a little bit of pushback initially. Marketing couldn't quite figure out if this was necessarily something we needed. They said, "Hey, we're doing such a great job," and to really have to put it in a way that it's like, no, we are doing a great job of promoting our product, but the people and joining a company is a whole different product. So getting that pushback, and then really quickly having to pivot and learn to be PR. Not that we have at Paper a lot of bad press out there, but it happens. You're always going to get those stories. And so learning how to be really respectful, learning how to take it and learn from it, that was something that we've really focused on. I never expected that candidates would interact as much as they do. We kind of thought it was going to be this little thing on the side, and we have candidates. I have one who I always think of. She works for us now, and we always joke that she's the only candidate that all of my HR professional friends know that got themselves a job. Like she put it out there in the universe, and she interacted with every single one of our employees' posts. Everyone knew who she was before she started because she was following life at Paper. She was commenting on everything. She was so engaged and just became this natural part of our community on social media that we were like, oh gosh, we have to hire her. Like, she's become a Paperite on her own. I guess we should hire her. And she's been with us for about 6 months, and it's worked out lovely. We absolutely love her, and she is such an incredible brand ambassador to this day.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's so funny. Like someone before you even start, it's like we all know who you are.
Yeah, everyone knew who she was. The CEO knew who she was.
I love that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
incredible. That's incredible. That's a great story to end off, such a
Yeah.
enlightening session. So again, thank you to everyone today who attended, made time out of your busy schedule to join myself and Hannah today. And